Let's begin with the questions. It will be followed by the answer key. Do record yourself to compare the answers. If you want to watch some tips related to describe image, please click the link given. Now, let's fast forward, shall we? Because it's getting boring. Please do pause the video and record your answer.
This graph shows the number, in millions, of the people who speak Spanish in various countries in America and Europe. Mexico has over double the number of Spanish speakers of any other country, including Spain. Colombia and Argentina each have over 30 million Spanish speakers. The United States has more Spanish speakers, over 20 million, than Venezuela, Peru, and Chile.
The image shows a new skyscraper and a relatively older building in the foreground. Some of the older surrounding buildings are reflected in the facade of the skyscraper. The skyscraper is probably 50 stories high, while the older building would be around 10 stories. The skyscraper is made of glass. The older building is much more ornate and is probably made of brick, wood, and tiles. There is quite a juxtaposition between the two styles of buildings.
The graph shows the output of processor chips over a week, with figures provided for each day. The greatest number of chips was produced on Friday, with about 16,000 chips produced. A similar number was produced on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, with just under 14,000 chips each day. About 10,000 chips were produced on Monday, while 7,000 were produced on Saturday. There were no chips produced on Sunday.
The image shows a school timetable for Monday in Semester 1. Lectures start at 9 a.m. and conclude at 4 p.m. The first lecture is Introductory Statistics at 9 a.m. The next lecture is at 10 a.m., Psychology 1. Lunch is at 12 noon. There is an English literature tutorial which lasts from 1 to 3 p.m. The last lecture is Economics 1, which starts at 3 p.m. and concludes at 4 p.m.
This diagram shows how a selection of 100 second-year university students traveled to university. 60 students said that they traveled by train. 30 stated that they traveled by car, while 10 students stated that they traveled by both car and train. One could conclude that most respondents traveled to university by train, a minority traveled only by car, while a small number of the respondents, 10%, traveled by both train and car.
This organizational chart shows members of a management team. The director is Jim Tognall. He has 3 people who report to him. These include marketing manager Michelle Davis, business development manager Adrian Moranis, and customer relations manager Marjorie Smith. The director's assistant is Chris Gale.
This is a simplified map of part of a university campus. It shows the locations of the Thomas Mann Library, the science labs, the undergraduate lecture theaters, and the sports field. The largest building is the lecture theaters. The Thomas Mann Library is a long, narrow building. The science labs are near both the library and the lecture theaters. The sports field is near the library and the lecture theaters.
The countries with the highest rates of boat travel were Nauru, the Federated States of Micronesia, the Cook Islands, Tonga, and Niue. The rates of boat travel for these 5 countries range from 94.5% to 81.7%. Nauru had the highest rate of boat travel by residents at 94.5%.
The world's most populous region, with approximately 35 million residents, is Tokyo. The 10 largest urban areas in the world range from approximately 12 million to 35 million. Tokyo, Mexico City, and New York are the 3 most populous regions in the world.
In both 2007 and 2008, Moscow was rated as the city with the highest cost of living. Moscow, Tokyo, London, Oslo, and Seoul were rated as the world's 5 most expensive cities to live in. Between 2007 and 2008, Moscow remained the world's most expensive city. Over that period, Tokyo and Oslo became relatively more expensive, while London and Seoul became relatively less expensive.
On December 20th, 2008, the Australian share market opened at 3,620. It closed the day at 3,560. Relative to the previous day, Australian share prices opened slightly higher by 30 points, then gradually eased to close lower by 30 points. Between 10 and 11 a.m., the Australian share market lost 40 points. It stabilized for several hours before falling further between 3 and 4 p.m.
There is a relationship between how tired a subject is and response time. The highly fatigued subjects have a much slower response rate of over 3.5 seconds, compared to alert subjects who have a response time of about 0.8 seconds.
The sun is mainly made up of hydrogen and helium, with very small amounts of oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, and silicon. There are about 3/4 of hydrogen and 1/4 of helium.
The reported population densities range from just above 0 persons per square kilometer to about 18,000 people in Singapore. The most densely populated country reported was Singapore. Bermuda and Bangladesh had moderate population densities, while the densities of Australia and Greenland were very low. Azerbaijan is a country situated in the Middle East between Asia and Europe. Its territory is divided into 2 discrete areas. To the east, it is bordered by water, and to the north by the Russian Federation and Georgia, Armenia to the west, and Iran to the south. It has an irregularly shaped border.
The graph shows the performance of Australia among 194 nations in the world. It ranks 19th in terms of GNP per person at $32,220. Life expectancy for Australians is 80 years, ranking 6th in the world. Its literacy rate is the highest in the world, with 99% of the population able to read and write. It ranks 20th on the measure of infant mortality, with 5 deaths per 1,000 live births. Australia is rated 3rd on the Human Development Index.
The graph provides information about Brazil's climate. Brazil's temperatures range from an average high temperature of 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit during its summer months of December, January, and February to a low of just under 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit in July. Brazil is rainiest during the summer months, peaking at around 15 centimeters or 6 inches of rain in February. It is noticeably less rainy during the winter months, with monthly rainfall of just 5 centimeters or 2 inches in late July.
The graph provides information about consumption and spending in China. There are 13 cars and 241 phones per 1,000 people in China. China's annual spending on defense is 1.9% of GDP. Education is 2.2% of GDP, while expenditure on health amounts to 2% of GDP.
The graph shows the main source of tourists into Ecuador. Most people visiting Ecuador as tourists come from Colombia, with 27% of all visitors coming from that country. This is followed by the United States with 21% of total arrivals and Peru with 20%. The remaining 32% of tourists come from a number of other countries not specified in the graph.
The Finnish parliament is made up of 200 seats. The Centre Party, KESK, has 26% of the seats, followed closely by the National Coalition Party of KOK with 25%. The Social Democratic Party, or SDP, won 23% of the votes, followed by Left Alliance with 9%, the Green League with 7%, and the Swedish People's Party with 4%. A collection of other candidates won 6% of the votes.
New Zealand's main export markets are Australia, the USA, Japan, China, and the UK. Exports to Australia account for 21% of all exports from New Zealand. The USA accounts for 14%, Japan 11%, China 6%, followed by the UK at 5%. The information indicates that another 43% of total exports go to a range of other